April 10th, and many of us, this is now week 3 or week 4 of adjusting our work and our businesses in light of COVID-19. And I've noticed that some business owners and some professionals are actively looking to pivot their businesses. Some are shutting down less profitable services to double down on those that promise to generate more revenue. And some are stuck, not sure which way to go. But here's a question that many business owners are not asking themselves when making these important decisions, which is, do I have a clear business strategy? And according to our guest today, an even more important question that every business owner and professional should be asking themselves is, what is my compelling case for customers? I'm excited to have this conversation with Brett Sharenow about the importance of the 3 C's, your compelling case for customers, and to help our businesses survive now and thrive in the longer term. Brett is an advisor focused on strategy, raising capital from VC and PE investors, startup, growth, and value exits. Over the last 30 years, he's helped his clients raise more than $750 million and guided exits of more than $6 billion. So, whether you are a professional, a solopreneur, a business owner, a startup, or a CEO of a larger enterprise, this talk will help you define your 3 C's and ensure that you're pointing your business in the right direction. And so with that, I would like to bring Brett into conversation. Hey, Brett, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine, Roman. How are you? Great to be here.
I'm doing well, thanks. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So listen, we're obviously in pretty difficult times right now. How do you handle a client who's seeing rapid and significant changes in their businesses right now?
Over the last 3 or 4 weeks, I've had many clients come to me, former clients and new clients. They're really wrestling with what do they do. I think the first thing is tell them to breathe. We're in a tough time. We have a tendency to get into our heads a lot and really go to our analytics. What can I do? How can I figure things out? And to just settle down to begin with, breathe and go, okay, let's just calm down. Let's take a look at what's happening. Am I taking care of myself? Am I taking care of my people? Is the first thing to do. Second thing to do then is probably look at cash flow. Can you handle what's going on in the business in the next few weeks, 10, 15, 20 weeks, because we don't know how long this is going to go on. I don't think some of us believed it was even going to go on this long, but I'm now hearing that it may go on for another 8 weeks. We don't know. So you have to be prepared for that. And as you said, you have to be prepared not only to get through the short term, but the long term. And then that, of course, brings us to the question of strategy. And as you said, what is your strategy and how do you think about your business case, your product? And I'm going to use product instead of product and service throughout this interview, but you can use service too if you're a service business like I am. What is the offer that you're giving? And from a strategy perspective, what's the framework? People, especially entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and even large company CEOs, we have a tendency to make strategy really complicated. I get clients coming to me a lot asking for, we need a strategic planning session. We need to go off site and spend 3 days. And then it turns into 3 weeks. And then at the end of 3 months, you've got this tome that is really heavy and it's got what you think is strategy and then you put it in the drawer. That's not the type of strategy that you need in these times, nor is it the type of strategy you need at any time to run the business. So I like to simplify strategy as it being the framework for your business. It should be a couple of sentences at most, and it should give everybody in the company the direction and the impetus to say, okay, I have a decision to make. Here's my overlying strategy. This is the way I'm going to make the decision based on that. It's literally as simple as that. And it doesn't matter whether you're the chief marketing officer or the chief technology officer or somebody who's actually putting the product together on the line. You all need to understand the framework for the business so that you can make the decisions on your own when you need to and move the business forward.
And it's a great reminder, I think, for all of us to not just have a very clear and actionable strategy, but to have a strategy in place. And I don't know if you're finding this in working with your clients, but I've discovered, and this is often looking at my own business, that we're so busy generally just running our business and responding to what's going on in the marketplace and trying to do what's good for our customers and our vendors. And we just never really find the time to sit down and to work on our business, to look at the big picture. But I feel like right now is just such an important time, and it's also a good time. We're all sort of being forced to pause and to think. And so maybe you can just take another moment if there's any thing else you wanted to add to the importance of having a business strategy, and how do we make it simple and actionable and clear?
Yeah, sure. I think you said it really well that strategy is looking over the business from what I call a 10 or a 15 or a 20,000 foot view. We all have a tendency to operate in the details.
Hmm.
And that may be with a spreadsheet, it may be piece of product development that you're doing, it may be a marketing plan. Those are the things that actually have things happen. They are actionable. I like to call them, and people call them tactics. And those are the things that move you along. The problem is when you're in the details, you can't see the big picture. So when I work with clients, I usually have them think about a triangle that's on the ground, and the 3 points of the triangle being the different components of the business: finance on one piece, business plan on one piece, and the whole deck of the company. What's the company doing in one piece? And when you're in the details, that's what's happening. But you need to essentially be in the middle of that triangle and get in a helicopter and literally just raise directly up from that business so that you can look down and survey what's happening in the business from an elevation that lets you see the business as a whole. When we're in the details, we're focused here, but we don't see the broad breadth of what's happening. And you're right, this is a great time to be able to pause, come up above the business and say, okay, what's going on down there? So if we talk about business strategy then and the framework for strategy, and I need to mention one piece here that's important. A lot of people put strategy and planning together. So you'll hear the term strategic planning. That's an oxymoron to the point you just made. Strategy is what is happening, what's your framework. It's not the details or the plan of doing anything. The plan is separate. So I like to talk to clients about their strategy as the roadmap, the overlying framework for the business. Now, what comes into play then with strategy, to not bury the lead, is what drives it.
Mhm.
What drives the business strategy of your business? And when I work with clients, I like to simplify this because strategy is this big term that people kind of get confused about. So I'll break it down to the next simple piece that is the most important piece for any business. It doesn't matter whether you're a startup. I work with startups all the time at raising money, at strategy. It's the key piece for startups. It's also the key piece for middle market customers, companies, and large companies. And that is what you mentioned at the beginning of this broadcast, the 3 Cs, or your compelling case for customers. Compelling case for customers means, and if you think about it, just step back a minute and just think about compelling case for customers. Oh, it's why customers are so excited about my product that they literally want to rip it out of my hands and take it, maybe pay me for it, hopefully, but they want it so badly that it's critical for them and critical for the business. So I like to break it down strategy to starting off with the 3 Cs, because you can't establish a business framework strategy without knowing why your product is so compelling and why customers want to rip that product out of your hand. It's the emotional response of your product. It's not the widget itself or the service itself. It's why is somebody drawn to you, drawn to your product or service, and why they want to rip it out of your hands. A lot of business schools, MBAs, you get the words value proposition, and that's bantied about as well. Oh, let's figure out our value proposition. I don't like to use value proposition because people, when they hear that, their eyes glaze over. The 3 Cs that I coined about 10 years ago is very compelling in itself. You understand what your compelling case for customers is. That's what drives the business. That's what drives people to rip the product out of your hands. And if you have the three C's for your business, the three C's will help you define your sales strategy, your marketing strategy, distribution, product features and benefits. All of that comes from the three C's. That's why they're so compelling.
I'm thinking back to the conversation that you and I had about a week ago, when you shared with me the work that you do, and you asked me what my three C's were. And interesting. I think at the end you'll remember I said, "Man, on a 1 to 10 scale, I'd give myself a 4." And it wasn't just because I was tired and it was, early in the morning and we were all adjusting to this new life, but it's because the way that we see our businesses and what we do is often through our own lens. We don't always think about, well, what is the reason that those customers that we're looking to do a good job for are wanting to grab those services or products out of my hands? And so the strategy piece that I thought I had for my business started changing in my mind after you asked me that question.
Oh,
And so what I'd like to do is take some time and let's talk about how can business owners, how can leaders of companies and organizations, as well as professionals, start to define their own three C's?
that's a great question, and I'm glad we had the conversation a week or so ago about this, and you realized I'm not even sure I actually asked you the question. I think I just put it out there, and you offered, "Wow, I'm not sure I have my three C's well defined."
Mm,
So let's talk about that. When I start working with a business, the first thing I'll do is ask that question: "What are your three C's?" And I do it in a very particular way. I go to the founder, the CEO, whoever's at the top of the organization, and I ask them privately, "Tell me what your three C's are." And sometimes it requires a few moments of introduction about what they are. And frequently, what I get back is not the three C's, but I get what are called features. Let me use this pen here. So, feature of this pen, it weighs this much, it's got this color on it, the threads look like this. Those are not compelling. They don't raise any emotion. The three C's have to be compelling. They have to raise emotion in the target audience and in yourself. So I'll ask the CEO the question. I'll then ask the CFO the question, and I'll ask a few people in the organization. If it's a technical product, I'll go to the chief technology officer. If there are multiple founders, I'll go to the multiple founders. If you're a solopreneur or an entrepreneur with a smaller team, I might ask the team. But typically, what I will get back from asking each individual that question is different answers. And that immediately tells me that the client doesn't have the three C's nailed and that they can't possibly have a strategy that's propelling the business forward. That doesn't mean that the business can't be making money. Frequently, businesses make money without having the three C's nailed. But you can't grow rapidly, you can't thrive, and you certainly can't raise money from venture capital or private equity investors without having the three C's. So, first piece, as I said, asking those questions. Second piece, then, if they don't have it, we'll go back to the features and benefits of their product. And the first thing we want to start off with is, what are the features? And the features, as the pen I just held up in my hand, is the weight, the color, how does it feel in your hand, anything that's the technical aspects of the product or service you're offering. That starts us down the path. The second question then that I have to get to, and marketing people will know this in a moment, is what are the benefits? You can't really sell the features until you've sold the product emotionally. So benefits are, what does the product do for me? What does the product reveal to me? What does the product provide to me? And benefits really should have an emotional hook of some kind. I get excited about it. I can connect with other people. I can connect with myself. I can do something that I've always wanted to do. That emotional hook is critical. So we'll start defining what the benefits of the product are for the client customers. And I always like to look at it from the perspective of what I call a skeptical customer, somebody who is not really interested potentially in buying your product, and you have to get them over that hump of, yeah, this product is compelling. It's one of the key things that you have to do, by the way, also when you're trying to raise money from investors. That pitch that you give them has to be emotional. And that's why the benefits and that's why the three C's come into play so many times. So we'll focus on the benefits for a while. We'll start going down that road and we'll start coming up with a list of the emotional benefits that happen. And then we'll take that list and we'll start narrowing it down to come up with what are the key drivers, which of those benefits are the most important towards driving this product forward. There are times for a product that's out there that's similar to other products and there's nothing special about it, that we can't come up with the three C's. And that makes us then step back to say, okay, what can we do in product development to change the product offering so that we can have 3C benefits behind it? Because that's really what we need to either raise money or to grow or to exit at a high multiple to get out of the business in an M&A transaction or an IPO. That's really important. If we can come up with those two or three benefits that are compelling, we can then start to define the three C's for the business. And that usually takes a couple of more iterations, that may be days, or there may be calendar time where we literally have to go away and let those ruminate inside of us while we take a run or walk or do the kinds of things that we typically do when ideas get generated. For me, I like to walk and ideas come up when I'm not thinking about something. And anything you can do in that regard will help you develop the three C's so that you then have something. And then we go out and test. We'll go out to current customers and tell them what we think the three C's are and see if that resonates with them. We'll go out to people who may have looked at the website, looked at the product, but didn't buy. And we'll ask them those questions. And then we'll go out and do a random sampling of people who we know are in our target audience, because we now know, in quotes, what the three C's are. And if you do have the three C's, you already have your target audience defined. You know who's going to buy that product and who will be compelled to buy that product based on what you are telling them and showing them that the product can do. So you'll have that conversation and see if they are actually compelled to do it. And then we'll start doing some actual testing. If we've got our own website sales, we'll do some A/B testing to see how it works. If we're working through distributors, we'll have conversations with them. So not only does the three C's give you what's compelling for your customers, it really lays out for you your go-to-market strategy. And I find that in the majority of customers I work with, the go-to-market strategy is missing. Yes, of course, they're selling their product, but they really don't understand how the three C's drive go-to-market and get to the endpoint target customers. So the three C's do so many things for us in terms of being able to define why your customers buy, how you're going to get to the customers, how you're going to sell. They even define really your price point. The more compelling your case is, the higher price you can typically charge for your product. So all of this comes into play in the strategy that then lets you look at how much money do I need to raise? How fast can I deploy the product? How quickly can I get my marketing strategy deployed so people become interested? Should I be using social media to do this? Should I be making phone calls? Many people, many CEOs and founders put the cart before the horse and they just start launching on any one of those initiatives that I just talked about. But you really can't launch well and effectively without fully grasping what the three C's are and how they work.
Brett, I had so many questions that came up in my mind as you were going through all of that. And I was trying to keep track of writing them down. And then you've answered almost every one of them in the natural progression of the answer you just gave about the three C's. But the one thing, that again stays with me is that oftentimes, and even today, a lot of business owners, a lot of business leaders, a lot of professionals are looking around at their customers. They're looking at the marketplace. They're looking at their competition. And they're also trying to kind of look ahead over the curve to see, where are we going? What should I be doing differently? And I've had these conversations and I continue to have these conversations with my friends, my business partners, our customers. But it really sounds like we should all go back and think about our three C's before making these important decisions, because regardless of which way this whole thing unfolds, the three C's need to be compelling, they need to be clear, and they need to be very concise. So maybe I should coin the other three C's.
I think you nailed it. I guess I want to say a couple of things on that.
Please.
Clients are coming to me and asking this question, and I'm sure you've heard this before. I actually think you mentioned at the beginning of this, how do we pivot
Hmm.
and how do we change direction? And I think it's a good question, but it's the wrong question to ask first. The first question to ask is, what is our current condition? What is our current strategy, as you said at the beginning? What are our current set of three C's? What is the current compelling case for customers that we have now? And if you don't have the three C's now, I would say to my client, you can't pivot yet because you don't know what you're pivoting from. You have to understand what solidifies you, what grounds you, and from where you are coming to the marketplace, customers, suppliers, vendors, distributors, all of that up front. So, yeah, I agree. You have to step back first, understand what your three C's are. Then you have some choices to make once you define your three C's. The first choice you can make is, I'm going to do the same thing. Maybe you're going to do it a little bit differently, but you're going to do the same thing. And maybe now that you've got the three C's, you'll use a different marketing channel, marketing strategy, go to market may change. You may change your pricing. Um, I've got people coming to me right now that are needing help. And because of this environment, because I really want to help people, one of the reasons I'm doing this interview with you is I want people to be able to get out of this mess that they find themselves in, of no fault of their own. So I've changed my pricing structure some to be able to help more people. And that's why I'm doing multiple videos and multiple podcasts on this. So it may be a pricing strategy change, but doing the same thing. You also may decide you do need to pivot. And pivot is essentially starting where you are and looking around at the landscape and saying, what can my current product or service that I have do in a different way? And I'll give you an example of what a pivot looks like. Open Table, who many of us know to make restaurant reservations. We get on their website, we can make a reservation at a restaurant, pick a time, and we have a seat. Their business has, of course, tanked because there are no restaurants open right now except for curbside pickup. So they are using their exact same technology, their same back end, their same people. They pivoted. Their pivot was, we're now going to start providing slots where you can book a reservation to go grocery shopping. And now people can book the slot. It keeps the number of customers in the grocery stores down. It guarantees you a reservation. And Open Table is doing the same thing with grocery stores that they were doing with restaurants. That's a perfect example of a pivot. So you might want to pivot. And then, of course, getting back to the three C's, what are the three C's for your pivot? And Open Table can, of course, articulate those for getting into getting into grocery stores. Remaining healthy and not dying potentially is a big one. Not being exposed or exposing as many others to the virus. Being able to get food so you can continue to sustain life. So all of the things I'm sure are part of their three C's for the new position. So we talked about staying the same with your three C's. We talked about pivoting and developing the three C's for the pivot. And then the third thing you can do is take a look at what's going on in the marketplace and see how you can take advantage of the current situation that's out there and how you can help. So there are companies out there right now that are making masks for people. And there are clothing companies, manufacturers. I'm sure you've all heard of clothing companies that are taking their sewing machines and people, and they're sewing masks together. So a great pivot, same equipment, same people, same materials, but now they're doing something that not only provides a new product, but does good for the rest of the population who's trying to prevent spreading the COVID-19 virus. So looking at current marketplace and figuring out what I can do with what I have is the third way that you can look at changing your business some to get to the next step and help as many people as you can while we're in the middle of this pandemic.
Brad, this is incredibly helpful and so clear. And it really helps to encapsulate and lay everything out in clear action steps for me that I feel like I can walk away with this and start to implement in my business. But if I'm not yet completely comfortable doing this on my own, as I'm sure a lot of us are, we still have our day jobs and our businesses to run. You've clearly laid out all the benefits, and I understand why we need our 3 Cs and how they inform our strategy and how we can then decide whether to pivot, to enter new markets. But if somebody wants additional professional help to develop their 3 Cs, to inform their strategy, to think through these really important decision points, please tell us more about the work that you do, who you can help the most, and how can they reach out and work with you.
Thanks, Roman. Yeah, the first thing I would say is do what I recommended in the last 20, 30 minutes. Try to get them together on your own. The second thing I would recommend is go to my website, which is www.broadscope.com, BROADSCOPE.com /book me. I am providing 30-minute sessions at no cost to clients who need help right now during this time. Could be strategy, could be 3 Cs, could be leadership, could be dealing with the problem that they're facing, cash flow, doesn't matter. Book a 30-minute appointment with me. Come prepared with your best set of circumstances. You might have your 3 Cs done, or you think you have them done. I'll spend 30 minutes walking through them with you. You might have a cash flow issue. You might have a strategy issue. You might have a board meeting coming up. How do you deal with that? Doesn't matter. Fill out a little form. Just tell me why you want to talk. Book the 30 minutes on my calendar, and we'll spend 30 minutes on a Zoom call to go over any challenges you're facing, your 3 Cs. If you want to review those, I'm happy to go through that and see if I can help point you in the right direction. 3 Cs applies to anybody. It can be a startup. When I work with men a lot, and do a lot of startup work and fundraising, but I also do a lot of mid-market company work in the $100 million, $150 million range. And those companies have a tendency to really get into the details quickly, and then they don't come out often, and they don't survey the scene and see what's changing. And we know that business is changing so rapidly in general, and even more rapidly right now. The decisions that you make today could be different decisions that you would make tomorrow. So one of the key things about the whole 3 Cs is they allow you to make decisions more quickly. Not just you, but they allow everybody in the company to make decisions more rapidly. It's one of the key reasons that I'm so adamant about companies having them. If you're a CEO and you know what they are, and everybody in the company understands what the compelling case for customers are for your business, it allows everybody in the company to make split-second decisions where you don't have time to run it up the chain or to check with a boss or a manager or check with a peer. So really, really important for that. You want to move it forward, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to spend the 30 minutes to help in any way I can.
That's a very generous and I'm sure a very useful offer that people will hopefully take you on. I've put the website address on the screen. So for those of you who are watching this live or are watching a replay, it's there for you. Hopefully the link is still up by the time you're watching this. Brett, if people have questions, can I share your emails? Can they reach out to you?
Absolutely. Just give them the Brett@broadscope.com email address. Roman, I am really looking forward to our next conversation when you come back and articulate for me what your 3 Cs are.
I might have to book that 30-minute call.
You are welcome to do that. You know how to get there now.
Well, this has been tremendously insightful and very, very compelling. And I think that is going to be incredibly beneficial to anyone who's watching this and is going to act on defining their own 3 Cs to inform their own strategy. Brett, is there anything else that you want to share with our viewers before we go?
No, I just think I think it's a tough time we're in right now. And I think we all need to remember that it's going to end at some point. We don't know when. We have relatives over in Italy, and they've been on lockdown now for something like 16 weeks. From part of my wife's family, it's just part of the way of the world right now. So I think the big deal is to remember that, to be compassionate with yourself, to be compassionate with your teams and with your family, and do everything you can to spread that word so that we're not at each other's throats, especially when we're in lockdown conditions, whether it's with a spouse, a partner, kids that we're now having to homeschool. We're not teachers, so how do we do that? There was a blurb that my wife shared with me 2 weeks ago from Twitter. Somebody wrote, "I just homeschooled my child for the last 90 minutes. It felt like 300 years, and teachers should be paid $1 trillion an hour," or something like that. So I think that's brilliant. So, just try to keep perspective, try to get enough rest, and try to just be compassionate with yourself and with others.
Brett, thank you again. Wonderful to have you on. Thank you so much for joining. Have a
Thank
wonderful rest of your day. Good luck to everybody. Good luck to all of us. And these are really good reminders to stay calm and move on.
and
We will get
carry
through
on.
this.
Thanks for having me, Roman. Great to be with you, and look forward to connecting soon.
Thank you, Brett. Be well.
Okay. Bye-bye. You too.
Bye.